Hello, Movie Crusaders, and welcome back to another episode of CineMasochism. I am Brian Michaels. With me, as always, is Sean Wasserkrug. Sean, how you feeling about today's movie?
It's been a while. It's been about a month and a half since we've done the last CineMasochism. Granted, we watched one for the show, but then we decided just not to do it, which was the Miami Connection.
Which is tailor made for the show, but it's just like between scheduling and just we weren't feeling it, and it's like we end up going, you know what? It's been too long. Let's just move on.
Yeah, I do wish though I had like 90 minutes back though from watching that movie. But this one, I keep forgetting that this is a thing. It wasn't until you were like, because you had this one prepared, I think since like February.
When I started looking over the year's releases, and I went, "Oh, wait, Secret Invasion is coming out. I know what we got to do."
Yeah, you were just like, "We're watching Nick Fury," and I was like, "The fuck is there? There's a Nick Fury movie? Yeah, David Hasselhoff." I'm like, "Oh shit." Okay, let's see what this is. And you've literally been waiting like 4 weeks to have us watch this, and we finally got to watch it. And I got thoughts. I have thoughts.
We are today talking about Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was released on May 26, 1998. It was a made-for-TV movie, aired on Fox TV that night, landed fourth in the ratings behind reruns of Jag and the second half of the rushed-out cash-in miniseries Titanic, trying to cash in on the theatrical movie's success. Apparently, it had a $6 million budget, which is huge for TV, but okay, whatever. Obviously, no box office because it was on television. IMDb average of 3.7 out of 10. Letterboxd average of 2.1 stars out of 5. And Rotten Tomatoes has a 17% audience rating. The critic rating is technically 66%, although they actually say no rating because there's only 3 reviews there. 2 of them were positive, 1 was negative, but they're all from the last few years. So it's almost kind of like I feel like it's more like a retro ironic rating as far as positive reviews for these kind of things. So
most of the CineMasochism movies we pick tend to be that way.
They tend to be that way. If you look at the ratings, especially recent ratings, you have to kind of take them with a grain of salt. So the history of Nick Fury. Nick Fury, if you follow comic books at all, started out as a white dude with kind of whitening hair, and he had an eye patch, and he had the cigar, and he was like this gruff dude. It wasn't until I don't even remember. I want to say it's 2006 or something like that, where they decided where one of the artists decided to like overhaul the character, and he modeled him after Samuel L. Jackson, which of course then resulted in them casting Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury when it came time to the MCU. So this one obviously is pre that, so it's focusing on that original iteration of Nick Fury. Apparently there had been plans to make a Nick Fury or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie all the way back to like 1985, 86 from Canon Pictures, who's known for quality work. You know them from things like Masters of the Universe and
some of those. I know you want to talk about that in CineMasochism, but I'm gonna actively defend it to a point.
When's the last time you watched it? Anyway,
it was on TV like a year ago, and even as watching, I was like, "This is bad," but I still love it.
It's okay. You can still love it as long as you admit that it's bad. So obviously that didn't happen. I feel like at the time, Fox wanted to make wanted a Marvel property to make a series out of. But it's kind of like, what can we do on a TV show budget? It's like either the rights to these things are taken, because like things like Blade had just kind of come out in '97, the year before. X-Men rights had already been bought up by Fox, and they'd been trying for a few years to make a movie before they finally ended up making one in 2000. Spider-Man rights, I think, were still owned by somebody. So like, well, what's available, and can we do on a budget on TV? So it's probably going to be somebody not super powered, and they went with Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There are conflicting reports as to whether this was trying to be the pilot to a series, or if
it definitely felt that way while watching. I was like,
it definitely wanted to be more. The question is, I don't know if it's supposed to be a series, or if they said they were. If you ask David Hasselhoff, he says he signed on for more movies that never happened. So I'm not sure what exactly they were going to do with it. But that was it. This is written by David S. Goyer. Actually, just credited as David Goyer here.
Which is not a good thing from previous.
He did Ghost Rider. He did Ghost Rider, things like he did Blade. He did this, he wrote all 3 of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. So it's
That's
like
by himself, right?
not well. I believe Christopher Nolan's brother Jonathan Nolan was involved in
It's like
scripting as well.
Goyer did not write all that by himself, but
I
he also
I,
did
I
Fury.
feel like David Goyer in those cases was probably the person who turned it into a script, a screenplay, but they had like the story ideas and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know the details of how that worked, but I'm just saying he's a competent writer. So you wonder, well, why was he involved in this?
Yeah.
And I think, and the answer is he wrote this script years before Blade ever came out. They like I said, they're trying to make this movie for years. He wrote the script for it, but basically it didn't get made. And by the time it did get made, it's very little resemblance supposedly to his script, but he still has the writing credit on it. But as far as the movie itself, so I'm going into this expecting a train wreck. Sean and I both were expecting a train wreck. We're just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is going to be painful. It's going to be boring. It's going to be awful.
We honestly went into it with like the same mindset of like Fantastic Four earlier this year.
Yeah. And I'm watching it, and really, by the time you get in like the first 30 minutes of the movie, I'm like, this isn't terrible. I mean, it's not bad. I'd say that the worst part of it, or at least the least good part of it, is David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury, but he's just playing it super cheesy, hammy. He's being really overdoing the scowling and the grunting and the facial expressions, and he's kind of cheesing it up. But it's like even with that, it wasn't terrible. I was expecting far worse.
See, I felt the exact opposite. I felt like it wasn't. I felt like Hasselhoff was doing fine as Nick Fury. It was the cast around him that was bad. Like Lisa Rinna?
Lisa Rinna, who I know mostly from Veronica Mars.
I mean, she's not a fucking actress at all. Like, she's a horrible fucking actress. Oh god, what's his name? The British agent guy.
Who, by the way, do you know who that is? The character is Alexander Pierce, who is played by Robert Redford in the MCU.
Which even
so he's not even British.
Just like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that actor was not good. I mean, oh god, I'm like, it's been a few days, so I'm blanking on characters. The guy who actually was running S.H.I.E.L.D. that didn't like Fury, like that guy was a just paint by numbers shit actor.
And that was Dum Dum Dugan, who is I forget what
that's
Neil Donahue.
Yeah, Neil Donahue from the actual good
yeah
one. But I mean, yeah, the names don't matter. I mean, like you see these names, you're like, oh, how can you say like because these characters aren't the same fucking characters in the MCU.
Well, that's just it. Is like especially the one that really stands out to me is Lisa Rinna, who when looking at this, I assumed she was like Maria Hill. I'm like, no, she plays what was her full name?
Contessa
Valentina de Allegro Fontaine, who is we were just starting to see her with Julia Louis-Dreyfus in the MCU. But this and actually several of the other characters in this are actually completely comic accurate. Apparently she was like a big S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. She was involved in that at one point. She was co-leading S.H.I.E.L.D. with Nick Fury. I think she might have been romantic interest with Nick Fury at one time. And so it's like looking at it now after we've seen the MCU versions of these, like, whoa, this is not right. But it's like technically it is. It's just a previous iteration in the comics of them.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I thought Hasselhoff was doing a fine job. It was everyone around them that just wasn't matching. Either he was overacting or no one else was matching the same level Hasselhoff was trying to do with Fury. But when I was watching it, it wasn't me looking at Fury going or looking at Hasselhoff going, he's doing bad. It was everyone else was like, guys, can you like act with just like at least 10% more of where Hasselhoff is? Because I feel like Hasselhoff's like actively trying and everyone else is just like, oh, hey, Nick Fury, how's it going today? Blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, and we're just like, but I mean, it's like, but I'm buying his performance. I'm not really buying everyone else's. But I also agree while watching this, I wasn't hating it. I was just chucking up to like, yeah, this looks like a 90s made for TV movie. Like, which it's like, take it for what it is. There's some good ones out there. And then there are ones that are like this where it's like, I mean, at least they did something. Like, it's not horrible. Like if I was watching this like back in, you said 98, right?
98, yeah.
If I was watching this back in 98, I would have been like, oh, okay, cool.
Which honestly, looking back, I'm like, I swear I thought this was like a 1980s movie. I'm like, really, 98? That
Yeah, it's
late?
98 because the special, like, it doesn't look like a 90s movie. It looks like early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah.
But like, if I was watching this back in 98 at my age, I'd probably been like, okay, that wasn't bad. It's not better or worse than some of the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies in the 90s, except those are better just because of the martial arts of it all. But it's not any different than anything that you would.
You know what this felt like? And I think it's because of the same time period. And like we said, it felt like it was the pilot for a series. This felt like, because this is back in the 90s, where it was like syndication heaven, where that's when you had like your Hercules and your Xena and all these kind of movies. It felt like that kind of a show with that kind of a budget and production value.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to get to that 100 episodes so they can syndicate the thing, and it's, which, back then in the 90s, you would watch that shit every fucking week, but now you're like, oh my God, this is fucking awful. But that's what this movie felt like. It wasn't actively bad. There's some real, acting in this, and to a point, because I think even like the first scene with the soldiers, like there was that one dude, I was like, wow, that's the choice you took that actor, that performance to. It's like you only had like 3 lines of dialogue. But I just remember the first time I was like, that was a choice to go that way with that performance. But it was there was one particular performance in this movie that really stands out, and that is what was her name? Because I know you got it pulled up.
Oh, like for Sandra Hess?
Yes,
Viper.
Yeah. What was she was a Stucker, right?
Andrea von Strucker.
Yeah, her performance, which I only know her from. Granted, we both have seen Encino Man because we did it on the Weekend Crusaders, but I don't remember her as Cave Girl at the end of the fucking movie.
She was at the very beginning and at the very end. She's the Cave Girl, and then of course Mortal Kombat Annihilation. She took over for Bridget Wilson Sampras. She took over for her as Sonya Blade.
Blade, which I didn't hate her in that, but I mean,
I hated that movie, but she was.
Yeah, like I honestly, that's another movie that like I know it's bad, but I don't hate that.
Yeah, and plus she was super cute in this movie. I loved her in this movie. But.
Oh, she's gorgeous. She's gorgeous in this film, but she is. Oh man, she is doing the best to like overact the shit out of this.
Well,
like
first she's playing up that accent like crazy.
Oh, yeah. She's really laying on the German accent super thick, but she's doing like almost like she's trying to do this on like Broadway. Like she's everything in all this world, and we're always gonna do this. And she just keeps keeping the hand up and everything. I was like, I was laughing because I was just like, it's adorable how over the top you are trying to make this role. Like you look great, but man, you need to tone this the fuck down.
Yeah,
she made it entertaining. She was entertaining throughout, not in the good way, but she was fucking entertaining in this film.
Well, that's just it. Is I think that this movie, with her and with David Hasselhoff, that I think it was like really embracing the cheese. And like I said, this is back in an era where comic books movies were looked at as that they weren't respected. Like I said, Blade had just come out, but that was the only one. I mean, there was like the Batman and Superman are kind of their own separate thing, but otherwise people are like, it's comic books. You don't treat those seriously. They're supposed to be cheesy and whatever. It's a comic, And so I think people just played it up that way. And she was definitely sinking her teeth into it. She's another one who technically is quite comic accurate as far as the character, although they actually combined 2 characters because there was Von Strucker's, he had the 2 kids, it was her and her brother. And then there was Viper, who we've seen like in the Wolverine. But although they technically didn't own that, so they had to call her Madam Viper. They couldn't have her be the Hydra version of it. She said to be a separate character. But they combined those into one character here, and made her kind of a weird thing. And then there was another character, Kate Neville, who I know you had a real problem with this. Like the first time she meets Nick Fury, she like is reading his mind. Like
she took. They either implanted her with
like
something.
ESP implants, they said,
Yeah. So she has like basically like Xavier-esque kind of mindset where she can like do this and like read their thoughts and all that stuff. But like the first time she meets Nick Fury, she doesn't have to touch him at all. She's just standing like 3 feet in front of him and she can read his mind.
Like, oh, I know what you're doing. Yeah.
But then any time after that where they're like, hey, we need information from this guy, like do your thing. And she basically she's like, it's too hard. I can't do it. Like, and it's draining all of her. I'm like, then how did you read Nick Fury like it was nothing? Because it's like you walked right out of Fury and you're like, you're thinking about blah, 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 blah. What? And then like anyone else after that, it was like the hardest fucking thing in the world. And it was just like,
I offered up the theory that it's because if they're resisting, it makes it harder. But they don't. If that's the case, they didn't explain that at all.
no, they didn't. They don't. And it was a very frustrating character. Honestly, her and the British guy, they reminded me of two characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, the show. I'm gonna have to look them up real quick because I don't have them pulled up in front of me. But they were like two of my favorite characters on the actual show.
Fitz and Simmons.
Thank you. Yes, it was Fitz and Simmons. I knew Fitz, but I hadn't Simmons in my head. But that's what they came off as in this. Granted, that wasn't those characters, but like as I was watching this, I'm like, this is basically their Fitz and Simmons, but not good in a way because the like I said, the British guy's just horrible in this show or in this movie. But like I said, the actual general plot, I mean, it was a typical espionage movie, but I mean, once again, like nowadays, you're thinking MCU, it's very, very small in comparison. But like in 1998, I mean, this is no different than a lot of these shows or movies that they do. The special effects are, they're there.
They're what you'd expect from 1998 movie. Yeah.
Like we were watching it, and you're like, "Is that the helicarrier?" No, I can't be the helicarrier. It's too. What did you say? Like it's too small and shitty looking. And then it ended up being the helicarrier.
Well, because there's the smaller ship that they flew up to the helicarrier in. So that was too small and shitty. But then when they get up to the helicarrier, it's like someone just took a model of a aircraft carrier and just like put little things on the bottom of it. Like
yeah. And really? So I mean, like, what's funny is that the one thing that they probably could have made it look the fakest is probably where they put a lot of their budget in was to make a David Hasselhoff robot, like the
or his life decoy.
The bust up and stuff. I was like, I'm looking because I was watching. I was like, well, there's most of the budget right there. That's the budget is making this robot like actually move around look like David Hasselhoff. But then like later in the movie, you just have Hasselhoff, double himself. But it's like this didn't probably need to be made. Like you could have probably taken this part out of the film, not the robot itself. You could have just had him fully and just had Hasselhoff be like, hey, we need you to pretend to be a robot over here. And we're just going to shoot two different scenes instead of like building an actual robot replica of him.
It's like what was the other movie we were talking about? I don't think it was Turtles, but something like that. Oh, it's from 2004. We're like, oh, they spent all the money on like this animatronic, suit and stuff for the thing, and they had no money left for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. It was like they had no money left over. That's exactly what it was. Yeah, because we were watching you watched the documentary, and they put all that money towards the thing's suit and had no money left over for anything else. But yeah, it was just one thing that did bug me. It bugged you too. Is that there's this plot element in the film.
It's basically a James Bond plot, essentially.
It really is.
This virus.
It really is. Yeah. James Bond, if MI6 actually tried to help him on the missions instead of just said you're on your own and we're just gonna ridicule you when you come back, because they actually do try to help Nick Fury throughout the film for the most part. But there's this moment where Viper or Madam Viper, what the fuck you want to call her, she kisses Nick Fury, and it's supposed to be this poison. And they're like, good luck, you're dead, you're gonna die. And they're like, oh, there's nothing we can do, he's gonna die. His body's failing in like 3 days. Because it's like the movie just continues on, and Nick Fury is just like being Nick Fury, and it's like I thought he was poison. I thought he was gonna.
Well, it'd be off and on. He's like, then in one scene he could like barely stand up and walk, but then he'd be kicking somebody's ass the next scene. I'm like,
exactly. Like there's one moment where he's in a fight and like he wins the fight, but he looks very, very weak. Like he's like doesn't have anything, and then like it's one of those things where it's like, and then they get captured and they stick them in like a fridge or something, and then he makes an excuse like the cool air is actually making me feel better because my body's not overheating. So it like allowed like that line allowed him to like then act normal for like the next few scenes until you needed him to be in peril for the scene to work. And it was one of those things like we're watching, it's like how much time's fucking passed? This is like if you're gonna poison him to kill him, shouldn't it be instant? Like not to the point where it's like you have, because like she has these missiles aimed at New York, and she's like, I want to attack. I think it was Manhattan. She's like, I want to attack Manhattan to show that Hydra is strong and Hydra is where it's at. And then she fucking, Brian, you called it. You called it before I did. Like literally like 2 seconds before I was gonna say it. She fucking what?
I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure which thing you're referring to. Oh.
She fucking Dr. Evil's it.
Yeah. She wants $1 billion.
Yeah, she has like this robot version of like the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. walk in, and only Fury recognizes that it's the robot. And then he basically like projects this gigantic version of her head, and she spins around and is talking shit. She's like, I'm gonna give you till like 6 o'clock or like so many hours, and I want this much money, or I'm gonna blow up Manhattan. And it's like, then why did you give Nick Fury enough time to stop you by poisoning him? Because like you went all the way up to that time frame, and he's still over there like beating people's asses, and it's like, what was the whole point of poisoning him?
And then even when it turns out that they don't really, she's not really for the money, she just wants to set this virus loose on Manhattan or whatever. And it's like, and you even mentioned to me, that's why I wasn't sure which thing you were talking about. You were mentioning to me, it's like, oh, why did you give them so much time and warning them about the virus to just doing it?
Exactly. Like there was never. You just wanted the money too. You're just being greedy because it's like you never had to tell them. You could have just shot the missiles at Manhattan with no warning. They wouldn't have been able to stop you. You didn't even have to worry about poisoning Nick Fury because he wouldn't even have known. He was secluded in like a fucking, wasn't he in a cabin or something at the beginning of the movie?
It was a cave, wasn't he?
Yeah, I thought it was a cave, but like my brain was like, no, it's not a cave. Yeah, no, you're right. He was in a fucking cave. No one was gonna stop you. No one was. But no, you had to go, I'm gonna make a ransom and I'm gonna demand this much time. And then I'm gonna poison and piss off the hero and then give him like 18 hours, to basically stop me. And it's just like it's literally is Austin Powers where like Scott Evil's like,
I have a gun in my room.
I have a gun in my room
right now.
Shoot him in the head. Scott, you just don't get it, do you? It's like, we seriously just press the button. Scotty don't. You just don't get it. And it's just like, I don't get it because you could have just done all this shit and been fine. But no, you gave Nick Fury all this time to save the day. And then I love at the end when she escapes because she gets in a tube with her dad and she slowly is going down like an elevator. And Nick Fury's looking down at her and she's just looking at him and they're like, what do we do? He's like, oh, she's halfway to China by now. No, she's not. She's in the fucking basement.
It's right there.
That thing's like going like 3 feet like in 5 seconds. Like I'm pretty sure you could probably run down the stairs and catch her, but she's halfway to China.
I guess China's a lot closer than I thought. Maybe the Earth is
exactly because it's like, weren't you? Because I was. Correct me if I'm wrong. This could have just been me thinking like logistically. Were they in the U.S. the entire time? Because I was under the impression because the helicarrier kept flying around that I thought she was like overseas, or were they all still in New York?
I thought they were all still in the New York area. I honestly don't remember for sure.
Because I thought that was the whole big thing was that like Lisa or Contessa, like they were in New York to hold off or try to find the bomb, and then Nick Fury and the British dude and whatever the fucking Mind Girl, they went somewhere else because they were flying, and I thought they were like in Germany or whatever, like trying to stop them on both fronts.
Yeah,
like,
I don't remember. I don't know.
That's what I thought, but then it did seem that like Lisa, Contessa or whatever, they all kind of got to Nick Fury really fucking quick. So maybe they were all. I was with that person. They were in 2 different areas until the very, very end. But it was just one of those things where it's like you can get very, very mad at this and call it stupid, or you can chalk it up to this is how it was in the 90s.
This is how it was, and like I said, they weren't trying to treat comic movies with respect to the time, and I think they did try to make this kind of cheesy. Now, part of that might have been just because of the budget, like we have to do a certain amount of cheesiness. And like I said, that's what those syndicated TV shows were like that they were, we think, trying to make. But it's like even acknowledged, like at one point is the S.H.I.E.L.D. boss is yelling at Nick Fury and says, "You comic book coward!" And it's like, why would he know him as a?
You and I both went, did he just say comic book coward?
Like he's acknowledging him as a comic book character, and it's like, wait, he doesn't know that he's a comic book character. Otherwise, there's no reason to call him that.
What does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? I don't even what. where's the diss there except for coward? But why is he a comic book coward?
Because he's a comic book character. Apparently, he knows.
It's just it was
their
and then
meta moment. I don't know.
And then you had that one line that we've heard in like 1,000 action films where like the agent or the director is like, when after like Fury figures out that robot is him and not him, he's like, how'd you know it was him? Well, you shot at him. What if it was me? I didn't know. And it's like, yeah, we've heard that line like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it just is the movie. If you're just looking at this movie objectively as what it is the movie bad? Yes, it's a bad movie. But when you add all these, it's a made-for-TV movie. It looks like it's a backdoor pilot to a series. It's a 90s film. It obviously doesn't have the MCU or anyone really that's supposed to be paying attention to this shit, like really trying to back it. But yet, as you said, it's the most comic book accurate Nick Fury.
And I think that was the David Goyer effect. I think the fact that I think his involvement, I think because he's obviously big into comic books, he's done so many of these films. I think that he kept it comic book accurate, and then it was the screenwriters and people who changed things after he left that kind of, it may have changed the style of the movie, but like the accuracy of the comic books, I think, stayed thanks to him. But I mean, it's not a terrible movie. I will say, it's a bad movie, but it's like I expected so much worse. I expected it to be. Go ahead.
You know what's funny? So we made the Dr. Evil joke, and then the British dude, his main move was effectively a double judo chop. We didn't catch that till I just remember that because he tried to.
But then again, I haven't seen most of the Austin Powers in a long time because I'm not a fan.
That's literally Austin Powers' main move is going judo chop and then chopping. Because the British guy's like, I got this. And he judo chops this big dude. This big dude's just like, what the fuck was that? And Nick Fury, and he's like, you idiot. And then he tries, I'll do it again. He does it again and then knocks the dude flat out. But yeah, so the British dude literally judo chops a fucking Hydra guy. And I was like, okay, all right. And this is a year after Austin Powers. So there's some Austin Powers-esque to this shit to a point. But yeah, it's a product of its time. It really is. Like, granted, there's not all those movies you can use that excuse to. Now, there are some movies that we have said that to about, like, our second movie, CineMasochism, the blackface movie.
No, Soul Man,
which is like, of its time, that comedy worked, and you could do that, and it wouldn't cause an uproar. And then there are other movies where it's like, oh, it came out in the 90s, but it's like, no, this is just a piece of shit. Like, this movie just fucking sucks. Like Dungeons and Dragons in the early 2000s. It's a TV movie. TV movies are not notoriously good. I mean, I think many people still consider probably one of the best TV movies to be like fucking like It or Storm of the Century from Stephen King. And even those are not great. But they're solid for what they are, but they're still, compared to normal movies, they're dog shit. So it's like what are you expecting out of this? Like, we were expecting the worst, which I guess is why you and I were like, it's not good, but it was fine.
Yeah, I would in no way call this a good movie, but it was just like, I didn't completely hate the time I spent watching. I was like, it's what it was.
I mean, was it 90 minutes? I think we both checked it at like.
It was a 2-hour movie, so it probably was about an hour and 38 minutes, something like that.
I think, because you have to have the commercials, but like
you could tell, we call it every time it's like faded out for a commercial break.
Commercial break. But I mean, there were times I think we did a time check like 2 or 3 times. I think the first time was like 36 minutes in. We're like, fuck, it's only 36 minutes in. And then I think we checked it again like an hour.
Yeah, the second half was much faster, it seemed like.
Yeah, the second half. That's because you weren't trying to build story. They were just like, hey, we're just doing it.
Yeah.
At this point. But yeah, that first 36 minutes did feel like an hour, because I think you and I both looked at it, were like, oh man. And then we looked at it again with like an hour. There's like 30 minutes left. We're like, okay, but it did pick up because we were into the final act in a way. And then I think after that we were just kind of into not necessarily into the movie, but we were just kind of like, all right, this is what it is. And the brother Von Strucker gave us a nice laugh throughout the movie because he looks like a person that we know. And so that brought us a great joy to a certain point. For anyone who knows Coy Jandreau, that the boy Von Strucker totally looks like Coy Jandreau, which is pretty fucking funny. Because every time he popped on the screen,
The first time I saw him, I mentioned it, and then Sean's like couldn't unsee it the rest of the movie.
I couldn't, because every time he popped on the screen, I just giggled because I was just like, it totally fucking looks like Koi. It's like I love this. I love that he looks like Koi. And even his character kind of got shortchanged in the movie. I kind of expected more out of that character, and we really didn't get anything with him. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, on our cinemasochism scale, it's more in the middle of the road.
Yeah, it's not one we're gonna like defend, and
No.
we're surprisingly loved it or anything, but it's far from the worst.
Yeah, compared to some of the stuff we talked about on the show, it is definitely on the upper tier, or like right below the upper tier, compared to like, this doesn't deserve to be talked about the way it does. To this is one of the worst things I've ever seen. This is nowhere near that spectrum. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that very much covers it. We knew this was gonna be a shorter conversation because there really isn't much to the movie either. But yeah, I wouldn't go seeking it out, but if you're curious, it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
It's on
Like,
YouTube.
I haven't seen any of Secret Invasion yet. I probably at this point, I think
This week's will be the halfway point.
the halfway point. Yeah. So like at this point, because I'm not even really even getting spoiled. Like I'm normally I'd be like, oh shit, I can't see, like I'm being spoiled, but I don't think I've been spoiled once yet. We're 2 weeks in, so unless something massive happens that causes everyone to go spoiling shit, I might just wait till till it ends and then just watch it all at once. Which is the first time I'll do that with any MCU show. Brian has been watching it, and what are your thoughts on it so far? 2 episodes in.
It's intriguing. I don't love it, but I don't dislike it, which I have some of the MCU shows. It's got promise. I just have to see where it goes from here, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of CineMasochism. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, you can follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Out right now, Brian and I have our non-spoiler review and spoiler discussion of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, where we go over what we liked, disliked, all that stuff for that film. Also, this week's episode, or this past week's episode of the Weekly Crusaders, we talked about 2 movies that came out during that week in movie history. We were discussing Mel Gibson's The Patriot and The Legend of Tarzan. We also got this week's episode of the Weekly Crusaders still to come out. Also, I will be having a review for the comedy Joyride, which Brian saw the other night and said that it was quite funny. So I'm hoping that I have the same sense of humor for it, because I actually am really excited to see this one. I'm hoping that it is the funniest movie of the year, which right now, not the highest bar to clear. So as long as it doesn't suck, it should be the funniest movie of the year. So we'll have a review for that, as well as coming out later in the week. We are now in July, which means that we are at the halfway point of the year, which means our halfway, or was it the first half of 2020? My brain just went dead.
Half year review for 2023. Yeah.
Yes, our half year review for 2020. I almost said 2016. I just had to stop. It was like, I'm screwing this whole thing up. Yes, our first half review of 2013. Jesus Christ.
2013. I got to redo my list. Wait.
It's late, guys. The first half review of 2023 will be out later this week, where Brian and I will be talking about our best movies, our worst movies of the year, our most surprising, our most disappointing. There's been a lot of more positive films than negative films compared to last year. So this will be an interesting video to shoot. I'm intrigued to see where Brian's thought process is on some of these movies. And we have so many more movies still left to come for the rest of the year that we are excited to see. But check that out. That'll be out probably next weekend, if not early next week, because that is a longer episode, which takes a lot longer to edit. But yes, so we got plenty more to come. But until next time, we are the Movie Crusaders. I'm Sean Wascrew. That is Brian Michaels. And in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.